Welcome, everybody, to Unbridled Emotion. This is James, again, your host. I hope that everybody's having a wonderful day. I appreciate the fact that you all checked in to watch the live stream. It is a promotion, I guess, of our season 4. We've actually, Tony and I, my producer, my buddy, were talking about it earlier. I can't believe that we're already in our 4th season. I see a comment there. Dorothy, yes, thank you. Good luck, guys. I appreciate that. Hello. Um, we are going to be airing the first episode on Christmas Day. So this is like a little, I guess, reminder that it's dropping on Christmas Day. And I have a guest that's going to be coming on, a good friend of mine, Jack Smithlin from New Jersey. Jack's a coach and been friends with me he and I have been friends for years. And we're going to just discuss a little bit about the piece that's going to be airing on Christmas Day. Jack had a chance to preview a little bit. And we're just going to go from there about whatever comes up. So stay tuned, listen, hope you enjoy. And we're going to bring Jack into the show. Jack, it's James. Hi, buddy.
Hey, James. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate you being here. I just mentioned to our listeners that are watching the stream that you and I have been friends for years, that you were coach, and I was going to have you tell a little bit about yourself. Let him know that you had an opportunity to read the piece, and we were going to discuss a little bit about that, not in specifics, and then a little bit about wherever the conversation goes. So tell us a little about yourself, Jack, and let the listeners know who you are.
Well, once again, my name is Jack Smithlin. I'm from New Jersey. James and I have known each other for many, many years. I'm a school teacher, a retired school teacher of 44 years. I actually just started my 50th year of coaching. I was a college athlete in both soccer and in football. I did a little, I got some tryouts as a football player, as a place kicker. And I went on to my coaching career actually while I was in college. And I've taken it from there. I was a teacher of the special ed. I was a special ed teacher for over 35 years. And I was considered a mentor, a teacher and a coach. And, you know, I retired about 4 years ago from teaching. I'm still pursuing my coaching career. I'm a private coach also. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is in all the years that I've coached and taught, I kind of not by choice, but just by my background and my personality and my experiences, I became a mentor. And mentoring is, believe it or not, one of the most rewarding things you could ever do. And it's not about monetary, or it's not about any type of rewards, but the rewards you get are by the mentoring itself. And, reading your piece the other day, it applies to everything. It applies to life. It applies to every aspect of life you can imagine: the business world, personal world, home world, your family life, your athletic life, no matter what. And the piece was really, really well written, and I enjoyed it. And I'm not a religious person at all, but what I read was just fabulous. So, I mean, we could talk probably for hours on that topic, James,
Oh,
and we
sure.
can relate it to just some of our experiences, you and me together. I mean, what we've done in the past, and traveling together, and watching my son play ball, a professional baseball player. And, we had our moments where you and I had our personal talks, and it was just excellent. And when I read that piece yesterday, it was just amazing, amazing.
I appreciate that, Jack. I truly do. And I think that a lot of what you said is right. A mentor is even you and I. We've mentored each other. I mean, and through those talks, and a lot of, as I started to say to you off camera earlier, was that the fact that growing up, my writing became something that was an escape for me, a place to get the all the words and confusion out of my head, so to speak, and I put it on paper. And then here we are decades later, and that's why you say a lot of my pieces in the Unbridled Emotion are all about never giving up on your dreams. Always looking back, and if you have a dream and you're passionate about something, no matter when it happens, is the time it's supposed to happen. And the fact we've shared that so many times. And so I wanted to ask you, as a coach, you're at what, New Jersey University?
New Jersey City University used to be, when I was in school, it used to be Jersey City State. And at the
That's what I
beginning,
thought.
it was Jersey City State Teachers College, the same way I went to William Patterson, which was Patterson State Teachers College. But now they're
Right.
all universities, and, multiple majors and programs that they provide. And, I've been there, this is my start of my fourth year there. And I also coached at Montclair State prior to that for 1 year. And, I'm continuing what I love, my passion. And, you talked about dreams, about having dreams and everything like that. But, I have a saying that I tell my kids. I said, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And,
Mm,
your scares should
mm,
challenge you. Your dreams, I'm sorry, your dreams should challenge you. They
right.
should provide the opportunity and the willpower to go out and conquer them and win those dreams. And like you said in your piece the other day, don't ever give up, because what's going to happen is going to happen. And, it's funny, and it might be a little bit off track here, but things happen for a reason, and things happen, that create better things in the future. I can remember every job that I left, or every job that I got removed from for whatever reason, new people coming in or whatever, devastated. That next job was always a better job. It always
Sure.
provided better time, better place. And I'm in a job right now that I actually never want to leave. I mean,
Mm,
I'm passionate about it. Reading your piece about passion, it's just, it's what life is all about. Whether it's religious, whether it's your own beliefs, whether they all come together. And like I said, you know, I was very amazed at what you wrote, and it hits home. It really does hit
Yeah.
home.
I appreciate it. And you just said it, and it made me think. I had written a piece about how some people give up. I mean, we all get beat down. I mean, and sometimes you want to walk away. And I think as a child, like when I was writing, I was doing that. I was introverted. I would believe it or not. I wasn't an outgoing person. And so being able to reach out to people, being able to share my ideas, everybody else I thought knew more than me. And I didn't think I was capable of achieving a lot of things. And then at one point in time, I just said, you know what? Uh, I'm not going to worry about who likes me. I'm going to be myself. I have these things that I put on shelves in my mind for years and years. I was talking to Tony earlier and talked about being in places where someone would have a wedding or they got engaged or it was a birthday, and I would write him a piece, and give it to him as a gift. Different jobs I've had, and I bet I've been in a number. It's like an old jack of trade, jack of all trades and master of none for a long time. I searching for myself. Who was I? What was I good at? Where was I supposed to be? You would say to me, "Oh, I think you do really well doing this," and I would say, "Oh, okay, I'll try that." Didn't put enough thought, didn't have enough faith in myself. So the fact that all these years later, I'm able to because people used to say to me, "You should take those pieces and publish them." And I said, "Well," and we talked about religion, we talked about, God or what have you. And I would say, "Well, when he opens the door and closes the window and says, 'Hey, this is the path that I'm supposed to be on,' then I'll be there." And I mean, Tony and I were having a conversation one day. I'm sure you'll remember this, Tony. And I mentioned, and he said, we've known each other for a bunch of years. And he said, "You write?" "Yeah, I do." And he's like, I gotta get to listen to a piece. He said, "No, you didn't write that." I said, "No, I really did." He's like, "No way." As that was being said, I said that to my dad one day. My dad, when he started watching the first season, called me. He said, "Hey, I really like that. It was really good. Where did you get it?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "The piece where'd you get it? Like, where's the book? I want to read the book." And I said, "Dad, I wrote it." And he said, "Really?" So I was like, "Yeah." He's like,
Get
"Oh
out of
wow,
town.
that's awesome." So
Well, it's funny,
anyway,
you're talking about paths, and I'm going to tell you right now where I am in my life 5 years ago, 5 short years ago, because people out there that are watching this and listening to this, don't blink because those 5 years go by
mm,
real fast. But
mm,
5 years
wow,
ago, if you would have told me that I'd be doing the things I'm doing, listen, I lived the path. From when I was a kid, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a professional baseball player or whatever, like every other kid in the world. But those were my passions. I
right,
had a mentor in my life. I mean, I grew up in a very, very tough family situation. Both parents were I'm going to say, and I don't like using this word, but clueless as to what life was all about, or even raising kids.
right,
And I was on a path to really no good. And then I met my wife, who kind of like straightened me out and put me on a path. Why? I couldn't tell you why, but
right,
it was a path that I chose to take. I became a teacher like I always wanted to. I became a coach like I always wanted to. And
mhm,
I was going to, at one point in our life, I wanted to retire and spend time with my family, hopefully grandchildren, which I do have now. And that was it. But all of a sudden, that path changed, and
right,
I don't know why. And
right,
it just happened to one of the situations was I was driving in a car, listening to a show that I've listened for almost 20 years. Every Sunday morning, there was a show on WFAN in New York called The Sports Edge by a sports psychologist, Rick Wolf. Now, Rick Wolf, his dad is a Hall of Fame announcer. He's in, I believe, the baseball and football, basketball and football Hall of Fame as an announcer. Well, Rick
wow,
was a sports psychologist that graduated from Harvard, and I listened to his show for 20 years. And then one day there was a topic that I said, I just got to call in on this. I mean, this is perfect for me. And I did. and he liked what I said. And about 4 weeks later, similar topic. I
Mm,
called in again about a different situation that happened in my career.
mm.
And once again, then all of a sudden, he called me, asked me to be a guest on his show. I mean, this is WFAN, one of the biggest sports radio
Sure.
shows in the United States. And I went on his show as a guest. And then all of a sudden, a radio announcer out and producer out in Long Island asked me to be, they heard it and asked me to be a guest on their show. And with that, it led into me having my own radio show out on Long Island and doing it every Sunday night until the pandemic hit. And then all of a sudden, I started writing these little pieces about the mental game, something that I've studied for over 30 years now. And it's now it's going to be produced into a book. It's going to be published. And the same way that you used to write, I wrote to put my experiences down on paper.
Of
You
course.
wrote to relieve some of your feelings and stuff like that. And, for whatever reason, reading your piece yesterday about the paths that we might take, who knows why, but here
Right.
we are. And I'm doing something right now. I'm writing two different books with a big time author from New York City, a guy named David Fisher, who's written 27 New York Times bestsellers. He approached me about a book. And then Rick Wolf, after I wrote an article for WFAN, he said, Jack, you got to put this into a book. And
Mhm.
I'm doing that. So you talk about paths and why,
Right.
the doors will open. There's something I tell every one of my athletes: don't ever close the door behind you unless you want it closed. So you know what? There's opportunities out there, and you got to see them. And one of the things I tell a lot of my athletes is that behind every obstacle is a great opportunity. Unless you
Oh,
deal
sure.
with that obstacle, that opportunity might never approach you.
So,
So
like, you remember the conversation you and I had at Jackal Stadium one time when I was just getting into the massage business.
yeah,
I mean, I've been doing massage since, again, that same time I was writing. I was picking up books on shiatsu and reflexology. I used to go to the library and ask the librarian, "You have a Chinese section?" And she'd look at me like, "What?" She's like, "Do you speak Chinese?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a 12-year-old kid," right? She's like, "Give me the little card." You remember the cards? Tony, remember the cards?
yeah.
And I would go to the section and get these books, and I would look at the pictures, and I'd be like, "Okay, this goes here. This does this. If you press on that, okay." And I started teaching myself from that age. I used to watch the kung fu movies when I was a kid, and they used to have this Chinese fingerboard, and I
Yeah.
made my own. I made my own, and I used to work my fingers on the board, and I would practice with um, on my on myself. Press. Oh, here. Oh, this is supposed to relate to this area. My dad used to say to me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm reading this book, and you can relieve this and do this." And he'd say, "Okay, you're a weird child," but it was
Look
just
where it
something
led.
that that's exactly right. And that's and you so you said to me, who was your friend with Golden State Warriors? Who was there?
Mark Grabo.
Mark Grabo. Okay, so Mark um, was at the game with you that night,
Yep.
and you mentioned that being a massage therapist and what I was doing, and I said, so how did you manage doing what you were doing, Mark? And he said, listen, the only piece of advice I have is find a niche, find something that you love, find something that from a massage standpoint, like where do you see yourself? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And focus on that. And that's my buddy Brian Smith. He's with the New Jersey Devils, and Brian was my mentor, one of my mentors in school. He's a phenomenal massage therapist, a phenomenal friend, like you. I've known him for years, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit. I had graduated from Rutgers. I have an English degree, and he was working with Rutgers with their swim team, and he said, "Hey, you want to come and help the girls?" And the guy, and I think the men's team they had just gotten rid of, and at the time, and so I started doing some of their events. And next thing you know, he said, "Hey, coaches like you, the girls like you, working with you. Why don't you come to a Big East event with us?" And I thought, okay, sure. He said, the
Right.
only thing is, you're not with the team, so you got to get yourself out there. They were in Indianapolis, Ooey Pooey. And so he said, why don't you come out? And so I did. And I got to work side by side with him. So here I am. with my mentor, again, talk about mentors, people that lead you in a direction. And he said to me, okay, I like what you're doing there, but come here, come on my table, try this way. And I thought, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. That really works. I like that better. And I don't have to strain my body as much. And here I am, what, almost 17 years later, still doing that. And I got to work a couple events with him. He called me one day, hey, Harvard men, they have a guy, one of our guys supposed to be taking care of him, and he's not available. Can you cover? So I got to cover. And then when Brian got hired with the Devils, New Jersey Devils, the hockey, as you know who they are.
Yep.
He said, hey, listen, I'm working with Virginia Tech. I'm their massage therapist. I'm working with them doing their ACCs, NCAAs. They don't know I'm not working with them anymore. They don't know I just got hired. I want to put you in touch with the coach and have them take you on. And he said, I know you can do the job because I worked with you. He said, what do you think? I said, oh, sure, why not? But if you don't take the chance, if you don't keep the passion going, if you don't continue to keep doing what you know you're capable of doing, regardless of what anybody else thinks, because there's naysayers. You saw it in your career all the time. There's always people telling you what you can't do, why you can't do it, instead of helping people up. Like, I always want to give lend a hand. You know me. I mean, I'm looking out there to raise everybody up and give them my expertise in any way that helps them. And that's what you have done for me as my friend. And I think I've done that with you. And it's helped me to be where I am today. I mean, with the writings and the work, I still work with VT doing, their ACCs and NCAA stuff. It's just contract work. But for me, I love it. I love the kids. They're amazing. I mean, you've been working with kids since how long, Jack? Since what'd you say, 40 years?
50 years.
50 years.
I mean, this is my 50th year of coaching, and I retired, I think, in my 45th year of teaching. And I've been in all my years of teaching, I've only was at 3 districts. The one that I was at the longest was a school for learning disabled, the School of the Handicap. And I worked with handicapped kids for over 35 years, and I mentored them. And after they graduated, even in college, I mentored some of these kids. They would always call for advice and things like that. But, and I remember the principal of the school, where it was called the Community School of Bergen County, original name.
Sure.
And it was in a lot of the districts in Bergen County and New York City that could not handle their students with disabilities would send them to us. We were a private school, and these kids would come to me, and I would, just start working with them and start mentoring them. And, the situation with what you give back. I mean, I tell all my kids that want to go into teaching, I want to go into coaching. I tell them this. I say, listen, if you're looking for a job to make money, go find another job, because it's not about the money. And the rewards that you get will be far superior than any kind of amount of money that you'll ever get in your life, because these kids come back and they come back and ask advice. I get letters when they, it's so funny that when I started coaching just recently, about a year ago, I'm actually giving private hitting lessons to one of my students' grandchildren.
Wow, Jack.
So when you think about that, you say to yourself, wow, I mean, that's a long time. But I've had a passion for it. And, in listening to you talk about your passions, and what you did as a kid, I mean, this was a passion of mine, to be a phys ed and health teacher and a coach. And, I was lucky. I came from a tough family, like I started before. And my mentor was my godfather. My mother's brother was a phys ed teacher and a coach. And I wanted to take after him. And he mentored me. He kept me going. I mean, I grew up with an alcoholic dad and I lived in that life. And that was, that was a big, I mean, back then that was very common. You know,
Right.
the old saying, what happens in the house stays in the house. That doesn't happen anymore. And that's
Right.
for a reason, and just talking about the paths and the routes that we take and why we take them. And, I always say this, the decisions you make today will determine who you're going to be tomorrow. And when you think about that, the decisions you make are who you are.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, we make bad decisions, we become bad people. You make good decisions, you become a good person. You know what? And those different types of decisions that you make will spring out to people around you. I tell every one of my kids, be happy in what you do. If you're
Right.
not happy in what you do, go find something else to do. And
Right.
you know what? That's important. Surround yourself with good people. Okay.
Well, you know what?
I mean,
I
go ahead.
appreciate, no, I appreciate that. I learned a long time ago. Someone said to me, I don't remember who. Wish I could give them credit, but um, two things: you can't build a house on sand,
Yeah.
so you have to.
Oh,
Yeah, it
wow.
was one of my. It was my fourth grade teacher actually at the time who
Well,
said you can't build a house on sand. You need to get a solid foundation for whatever you're going to do, and you have to just keep building and believing in yourself. So I took that and always remembered to do that, and just I don't know, that's helped me get to where I am today because of that.
now let me
No,
ask you a
knowing.
question
Go
about
ahead, Jack.
let me ask you a question about the sand thing. Okay.
Sure.
And this is something that it's amazing that you just brought this up because I've read, after I've exhausted all of the books, and I've read hundreds of books on the mental game, and you know that
Oh, the mental game of baseball.
I've
You
given
shared
you
that
and
with me.
I
Exactly.
shared a lot of those books with you. After
Sure.
that, I went to leadership, and there were two people out there that were just extraordinary inspirational speakers that were leaders. One was a guy named John Gordon, who wrote, I don't know if you're familiar with this book, you probably were or are, was called The Energy Bus. Okay. And he wrote a series of books, The Seed. His newest book that just came out is called The Sale. It's a it's it's a fable about a guy who's struggling with his life at home, at work, and everything, and he meets up with an angel, a guy that's mentoring him, and he
Mm-hmm.
just said to him about, in order to make good decisions, you have to be on solid ground. Your feet have to be on the ground. And he used the house. He said, let me give you an
Did he really?
example. Okay. Let me give you an example. This guy built his house on sand, and this guy built his house on rock. And all of a sudden, this big storm came through, and the guy on sand was completely gone. The house on sand, the house
Mm-hmm.
on the rock, a good foundation, fought that storm and won it. Okay. So when you just use that, and I just read that this morning
Did you
in this
really?
book, it's called The Sale by John Gordon. Read
I'm gonna
John
have to look at
Maxwell.
that.
John
Yeah, definitely.
Maxwell is an inspirational speaker. He's more of um, let's say a school book type of thing. He doesn't write. Gordon writes fables about life, and they're both very religious. And John Gordon is a minister,
Oh,
and
no
every
way.
book I read, it has religion in it. They talk about religion and God and everything like that. And me not being a religious person, sometimes I put the book down because the word God is mentioned too many times. In this book, it's mentioned almost every other page, and I can't put the book down. It's just amazing book about
Okay, so
life.
you say in that every time I hit a wall growing up, uh, I would question. Okay, you want to tell me where I'm supposed to be going now? What am I supposed to be doing? And people say, "Oh, God doesn't talk to me." We don't listen. That's the
No,
problem
yeah,
sometimes. We
right.
don't we don't we don't listen. And everybody that came into my life and I'm sure you can attest to this in yours is it's like a redwood didn't become a redwood overnight. We grow every single day. And if we're allowed to take the inspiration from people, it's like somebody drops the seed, somebody waters you, somebody nurtures, somebody trims, and next thing you know, you're growing, you're learning, and like you said, you're doing the things that you are always passionate about. They've always driven me my entire life. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever quit. because I see myself differently than most people do. You know me more than many as my wife Dorothy. You were talking about wives before being involved, and Dorothy being involved was able to help me to find the path that I needed to have. She gives the support and keeps me in line. I mean, she says I drive her crazy, but we all know that story, right? We drive each other crazy because we care about each other. And I'm gonna jump away for 1 second with that. I'm looking on the board here, and I see Michael Hunt. I don't know if he's still there or not. Michael, you hear the music in our piece when you listen to the music, the little intro when we start. Michael wrote that. Michael's a buddy of mine in California, and this is talking about people that you know, people that influence you, people that are involved in what you do as a for a living, or what drives you, what's your purpose. Michael and I knew each other. We worked in retail years and years ago. His son became my godson, and then Michael moved to California, and we stayed in touch. And when Tony and I were discussing writing Unbridled Emotion, I called Michael and said, "Hey, listen, Tony and I were talking. This is my buddy Tony, and he said we need some music." And Michael was like, "Oh, I can do that. I would be very, honored to be part of that." So I said, "Okay, write us a piece." And he went, and he's been playing piano since he was, I think, since he was a child. He's a phenomenal musician. Talk about church being and ministering, and like sometimes when I need like I get phone calls. I get a call from a buddy of mine. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but I got a call from a buddy of mine a couple months ago, and he said, "Hey, James," a guy I knew in the military, and he said to me, "Hey, listen, I have to ask you something, and you're the most religious guy I know." So I was like, "If I'm the most religious guy you know, you're in trouble." But I mean, the fact that someone trusted me with that and reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you help me with something?" I just, and we talked about different things. Like you and I have had these really deep conversations. He and I did the same thing. And when I sometimes need to find my way, I'll call Michael, or I'll text Michael and say, "Hey, listen, this is what's going on, and I'm not really sure. What's God say about that?" And Michael, like I really need to study more, read more, because he can quote me and tell me and explain the situation and put it into the situation I'm talking about in life, and say, "Hey, this is something that this is what this means. This is what you're thinking about. These are the things that you're back to a foundation that you need to have in order to go forward and to stand strong." So, I mean, we're all there for each other. I got a question for you, Jack. So, Michael, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. I don't know if you're still there. I hope you're still there. Thanks, Mike. I'm reading now. He's saying that we're a very powerful conversation, and he really appreciates that we're on point. So, thanks, Michael. Thanks for being here. Anyway, you were talking about your students before, and you and I shared this once about where you're coaching and teaching at New Jersey City University. You were sharing some of your inspirational pieces with your athletes, and tell me about that story. How did that go, and how did that break into what it is now?
Well, it's funny because, being inspirational is, it's like anything else. If you're not that type of person and you're trying to be inspirational, it's the old saying, like, if you're going to talk the talk, you better be able to walk the walk. Well,
Right.
I think one of my most powerful tools is that I do know how to inspire. And, talking to these kids, I'm recruiting kids from all over the United States. I have a girl from Hawaii coming in. I have a girl from Washington State coming in. I have a girl from the Dominican Republic coming in, and they come in with different personalities. And one of the things that I understand is that kids need inspiration, kids need guidance, kids need to be directed. And when they can trust you as an instructor, as a teacher, as a coach, and as a mentor, one of the things that I found very true to what I'm trying to get, my goals in inspiring, is I found out that first of all, you don't need to have a title to be a leader. And I believe one of the most important things for a leader to do is to not lead, okay, is to develop. and lead at the same time. And the number one goal for a leader is to develop other leaders. Okay. And, in order to be a leader, you first have to be trusted. You first have to earn that trust, because trust is not given, trust is earned. And one of the things that I do as a coach is I try to get into every single one of my players' heads. I try to figure out who they are on the field, off the field, in the classroom, at home, in their social life, because now when I know them that well, I can help them with almost any problem they have. But here's the problem. If they don't know you that well, they're not likely to trust you right away. They're not likely to let you in. So what I do is I inspire. Okay. I give inspirational talks about, things that would help them understand why this is the right direction and that might be the wrong direction. Listen, everybody has to make their own decision. But if you have to have enough information to say to yourself, this is the way I'm going to go because this is not the way I should go. Not because this is the way to go because everybody's telling me that. You better figure it out. I have a saying hanging in my room, okay, in my family room, where I'm going to watch those Most Powerful Devils tonight. You talk
right,
about the Devils.
They are doing well.
We're on a roll right now, man, and I'm like in heaven. But I have a saying that says, in life, we need to take chances. And these two signs, these two plaques hang in this room. One says, of all the roads you take in life, make sure some of them are dirt. And what I mean by that is make sure they're tough. Make sure they're tough. Because when you are a kid and you do take the easy way, life becomes a more difficult task. When you take the hard way and you figure out how to conquer that hard way, your life will be a lot easier in the past. And on one of the signs on the other plaque, it says, okay, you can't steal second base with your foot on first. So you got to take chances. Wow. You've got to take chances in life. Make sure they're educated chances. Don't just react. Think before you speak. Think before you act. And what you should think about always are the consequences to what you're going to say or do, because that's a person that figures out where they want to go. Listen, there are going to be things in your life that are going to direct you in certain ways that might not be the smartest way to go. All right. You got to make that decision on whether you think that's the path that you have to take. All right. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can rely on your faith to make decisions for you. You can rely on your own decisions. You can rely on things said to you from the people that love you the most. And remember this, and this is something that I've learned. People that love you will never give you bad advice. Okay. They'll give you advice that they've either lived through or understand what will happen. And those are good things. So when I inspire, okay, I inspire through quotes, some greatest quotes. I mean, I have a book of quotes that I've been saving for years and years and years and years. And I use it and I look at the topic and I'll throw out an inspirational quote, and I say to them at the end of every quote that I write to them, and this is where the inspiration comes in. Think about what I said, try to understand it, and try to just react to it a little bit, feedback on what this quote is supposed to mean. And that inspires them to read more. It inspires them to act more. Okay. It inspires them. We had a girl that we just brought in from Oregon. And I'm going to just say this again. I don't know why they say Oregon. It's O-N. It's not E-N, but whatever. But she came in from Oregon. This kid wanted more than anything in life to be near New York City. She knew Jersey City. We had her major. She was going to be a nurse. We have one of the best nursing departments in the country. But here, she got homesick. And we, Ashley Martinez, the head coach, and I knew that she was struggling. We sat her down. We took her out for breakfast and we talked to her. And we told her that the decisions that, in our opinion, the decisions that she was making at that particular point in her life were not good decisions. She was spending money to be here, wasting it. She stopped. She was so homesick that she became a hermit in her room. And she missed practices. She missed classes. She missed work, study hall. So we sat her down and we told her that we think that maybe best for her was to go home, get your head set, get your head correct. We will get you, and I promised her this, And we did. We got her every penny back. All right. She didn't lose any credit or anything like that. And now she's home getting her head together. I just got a text from her 2 days ago, 3 days ago, actually, that said, when I get my head straight, coach, is the door still open? And I said to you, remember, I told you never to close doors that you didn't want closed. And I'm not going to do it either. The door will always be open for you here. So hopefully someday we'll get this kid back. But did she make the right decision by what she did? Yes, because two people that have experienced what she went through helped her. Did we inspire her a little bit to figure out what she needed to do with her life? Yes, we did. Okay. So when you talk about inspiration, you know all about inspiration, James. I mean, you've inspired me. I remember when I first talked about a book years ago, never putting anything down on paper. You said someday it will click in your head and you'll do it. And you know what? I'm writing 2 books right now. So, if they ever get published, thank you. If they don't ever get published, thank you again, because it gave me the great experience of writing. And
I appreciate that, Jack. And the thing is too, even doing this here.
Yeah, this is great. This is super.
Well, Tony and I were talking about it earlier. Where's like so for instance, we did 3 seasons, and Tony can attest to this. After the 3rd season, I was home and I was like, where am I going? What am I doing? I wasn't getting a major following, but that I put to rest right away, because I said, well, if you help one person, if you reach one person, it doesn't matter. I don't need a whole group of people to like me or join or subscribe. All of that's well and good for numbers if you're looking at numbers, which this goes back to your comment before about money. I grew up working, and I would cut lawns and shovel snow. You'll appreciate this. Started to sell TV guides door to door as a child, and that was a sale. I can tell you that much. And it was 50 cents. Here I am. I never thought I'd be sharing stories like this about, hey, that time it was 50 cents for a TV guide, but I would deliver them. And then the following week I'd go back. So this almost ties into your, you and you're talking about baseball and being genuine with people.
Integrity.
It is. And that's what I learned that lesson way back when. The husband was leaving with two sons to play baseball. The kids were 8 and 9 maybe. And they were leaving the house. So the following week when I went to collect my 50 cents, I said to the wife, so how did your boys do? And she looked at me. She said, my boys? I said, well, they were going to play baseball. They had a game. Oh, well, she lit up. And she started talking about her kids. She started telling me about their experience, how they won the game and what they were doing and how. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. I said, I really appreciate that. Now, genuinely was concerned, that genuinely cared about how the boys did, not as a conversation. You see people do sales nowadays, and it even happened way back then. They just talk. You said before, talk to talk, walk to walk. And you can tell, you can see through that when someone's shallow in that way and they're not genuine about what they're doing. And so she said to her husband, give James $1. And I said to her, no, it's only 50 cents. She said, yeah, the other 50 cents is for you. And I was like, okay. So I walked down the street going, I just made 50 cents. And
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to interrupt you.
Go ahead, Jack.
You had no clue why. You were just being you.
Well, that's exactly right.
You were just being you. You didn't do it to get 50 cents extra. You did it because you were genuine. Okay. You were showing concern and you were happy to do it. It wasn't like, oh, listen, if I say this to this person, maybe I'll make more money. Who cares? Right. Who cares? It's not about money. It's about what you give back and how you feel. Listen, I have kids that have come to me with problems. Listen, here's a statistic. Mm-hmm. And I might have mentioned this to you. Kids between the ages of 13 and 16 will more likely go to a coach or a teacher that they trust before they'll go to their parent with a problem. And that's a sad thing. But the reason that they don't, the good thing about it is the reason that they don't want to go to their parent with is because they don't want to upset them. They don't
Sure.
want them to be disappointed in them. Okay.
Sure.
But once again, if you didn't earn that trust from that kid and you didn't earn that trust from, or they didn't earn your trust, that kid would have never come to you. And I had situations in my lifetime that I've told you a few of them that you cannot believe. They would make, well, look at my head. They make your hair fall out.
Hey, Jack, who are
Okay.
you talking to? Okay.
Exactly. But the point is stuff that you are just amazed with, that somebody had the love for you and
Mhm,
the trust in you and the
mhm.
belief in you, that they came to you. And that's what
Right,
teachers and
right,
coaches and mentors should be doing.
right.
Not turning kids off, not getting in their face, not, listen, years ago when you were an athlete and I was an athlete even before you didn't care whether your coach liked you. You didn't care whether, I mean, you'd run through walls and do whatever you had to, and they could get in your face and curse at you and do. It didn't bother you. You didn't go home and tell mommy and daddy or anything like that. Today, you can't do stuff like that. And you shouldn't do stuff like that. But the point is this, and our goal as mentors is to grow, is to teach the
Sure.
youth of today or the students or the athletes of today to grow in a positive way, not
Mhm.
in a negative way. And you know
100%.
what? It's so much easier to be nice, okay, than it is to be unnice, not nice.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that.
And
My mother used to say that all the time, Jack. She said, you know, "You don't ever know what someone's going through, and so if you have a a kind remark, or even if you smile at someone, that could change their whole life." And it is true. And go back to coaching. So uh, you've dealt with it, you've seen it, and there are all different kinds of coaches. And I remember, now again, I wasn't a good athlete growing up for sure. I mean, we played baseball and stuff, just pick up games. I didn't really learn all the basics of it as much as I should have to be able to really play. But I tried little league when I was a kid. I was horrible at it because I didn't have the structure, didn't have the foundation, if you will. But I enjoyed it, and I then also tried out for Pee Wee football, if you will. We had a team in town, and I went to play for them. I went to every single practice. I busted my butt I ran. I think that's why my body still, muscle memory kind of thing. My body still has that ability to be able to get back to that because I did it so much as a kid. But the coaches that were there, and I can remember them by name, I won't mention them, but they I went to every single practice. I would suit up every single game, and I would sit on the sidelines, and they never put me in. Never have me play. And I remember saying to the coach, put my hand up, and finally get him to acknowledge me during the game. Coach, got to go to the bathroom. Go. I ran. I got back. The kid next to me said, "Oh, coach was looking for you. He wanted to put you in." And I thought, yeah, sure he did. Thanks. But all of that taught me and was a lesson. And I said, okay, they don't see me. They don't see me because they wanted to win. That's all they wanted to do. It's not all about winning. It's not all about the money. It's not all about winning. It's about, go ahead. I know you got something to
I
say
got
with
a
that.
good one.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Success is not always measured in wins and losses.
Hmm.
Success is measured in growth, development,
100%.
teaching the right thing. That's success. Okay. I tell my kids every day, whether we win or lose, we win. Okay. I was saying it's some days we win and some days we learn. All right. If you think about athletics, and these are life skills, but if you think about athletics, do we learn from our victories? No, we learn how to celebrate. So I always say to my kids, listen, okay, when you lose, say nothing. When you win, say less. Okay, be polite, shake their hands, walk away, and learn from both sides of it. But in reality, in real life, we don't learn from our victories. We learn from our losses. We learn from our failures. It's like
100%.
Thomas Edison said. Okay, most people don't know how close they were to success when they quit.
Mhm.
Okay. And I didn't fail 1,000 times in developing the light bulb. I learned 1,000 ways not to do it. So there's a guy who's positive. Okay.
Mhm.
And these are the life lessons that we have to teach our kids.
Sure.
These are the life lessons that our teachers should be teaching every single day in class. When I left school, I developed a program that my wife showed me. It was developed up in Massachusetts from a Dr. Dorothy Rich, a Harvard graduate. She came
Okay.
up with a program called, um, oh God, it's all about life lessons. Okay. And
Hmm.
I implemented this program into my school to the
Okay.
point where when I retired, they continued this program about teaching life lessons every day. Math teachers had to come up with a life lesson every day in every lesson they taught. English teachers, history teachers, science teachers, phys ed and health teachers, art teachers had to teach a life lesson every single day. Okay. And this was amazing because to this day, after 5 years of being retired or 4 years, they still implement it every day in school. All right.
Hmm.
We have to teach life lessons. Life is about life, you know. The lessons that we learn are what guide us in the right directions. You know, you
100%.
talked about before moving in the right direction. And things happen, you know, we move in directions for a reason. Okay. In some people's eyes, they feel that God guides them. One of
Mhm.
the things I wanted to say before, and I don't want to get off track here, but years ago, anytime that I read a book that had God in it, I put it down.
Mm.
And then I started listening to some of your podcasts and
Hmm.
reading some of the stuff you wrote. And I can honestly say to you, this book that I'm reading right now, The Sale, has God in it every page.
Right.
And because of you, James, I don't put it down. All right. And when I can take it and I can say that the things that I'm learning from this book are all the same things that you talk about
Mm.
in your podcast, on your podcasts and in your writings, it's exactly the same. How we deal with it is our decision. All right. But if we don't deal with it, things can go awry. Things can understand that, listen, we have a lot of problems in life today in the world going on, pandemics and wars and everything like that. Can
Right.
we do anything about it directly? No, we can't. We can help, we can try, but I say this to my kids almost every day: be concerned with the things that you have control over,
Hmm.
because the ones that don't are the ones
Right.
that will drive you crazy.
Right. And
Okay.
Dorothy says to me all the time, if something's, I'll get upset about something. I mean, we're all human, and
Yep.
I have tapered myself from being angry again, being angry growing up because I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do, and so I was frustrated, which brought me to the writing to begin with. and and as I grew older, I started my writings as roses are red, violets are blue, way back
Yep.
when, and then became a very philosophical writer. More depth to stuff. I mean, I go back and read stuff that I write now, Jack. I wrote something just last night. We're already working on season 5. So I've got 3 pieces that are written, but they're more. You talked about stories before. They're more story based. They're more about people that I encountered in my life. Dorothy said to me the other day, she said, is this season with the same thread of information, the same in protocol, if you will? Are you writing the same style? And I said, yeah, some. I mean, it's me opening all the doors inside and letting all that stuff out that I've been holding in, for a long time. But all of that compression, I mean, how do you make a diamond? You make a diamond by
Pressure.
pressure. Exactly. So all of those things that were inside of me all these years are now coming out, and and they are enlightening my entire self.
You know,
I,
I
I
want
I'm
to
I'm
say,
I'm not I'm not angry anymore. Yes, I have my moments when I like lose my mind, but
we
I
all
I
lose
saw
our
I heard I
minds.
heard I heard a quote the other day, Jack, that said, listen more, talk less, observe more, react less. And it stays. I don't know who said it. I wish I could give them the credit for it. And I have a phenomenal producer behind the glass over there who's looking up every single thing you and I are talking about. He actually put on before I noticed up on the board about John Gordon. Was it John Gordon you said?
Mm-hmm.
And
Jon.
right. Yeah, he found it. He found it. He put the link up.
So read all his books, The Seed, the training camp about a football player who was, I mean, his stories and fables are all about, believe it or not, about making good choices, life choices that we make, being directed, sure. Why we're being directed,
Sure.
The Sale, the one I'm reading right now, that's his newest book. It's amazing. I've read every one of his books, every single one of his books. Okay. But we were talking about, I want to tell you a little bit about the story with the quote I gave before about success is not always measured in wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
Two things real quick. Zach was playing at Penn State. Okay. They were having a very good season and they had a doubleheader. They played a 4-game series, I think, Friday night game, doubleheader on Saturday, and a single game on Sunday with Ohio State.
Okay.
And they had beat it on Friday. They beat them the first game. And if they won the second game of the doubleheader, they already clinched the league championship, which would have put them into the NCAAs automatically.
Wow.
And that they got beat. Okay. And as they're walking off the field and they're packing up and they're walking back to their locker room, the coach, Joe Hindelang, was walking with his chin in his chest, his head down. And here I am, this lonely little high school coach coaching girls softball at Fairlawn High School. And I walked up to him and I said, Coach, and he knew me by Jack because he had recruited my son right in our living room.
Okay.
And he says, yeah, Jack, what's going on? I said, pick your head up. He said, what? I said, pick your head. He's the head coach at Penn State.
Doesn't matter.
I said, pick your head up. He goes, why? I said, you know what? Think about where you were a year ago today. Okay? Yeah. Okay. I said, are you thinking? And he goes, yes. I said, do you think that you've had any success till now? He said, well, winning and losing. I said, forget the winning and losing. Look at the kids last year and look at them today. Do you feel that they've grown? Do you feel that they've gotten better? Do you think that they've improved? Do you think that they've matured? He said, of course. I said, then you're a very successful coach. And that's when I said to him, success is not always measured in wins and losses. So you keep your head up because you're developing young men here. You're developing people that when they leave the baseball career, and Zach was lucky to play 8 years of pro ball, but when you're ready to walk away into the real life, they'll be ready for it. Not because they lost the game to Ohio State, because of what you've developed and what you built here. So keep your head up.
Okay, so I'll interject then with that. It's a phenomenal story, Jack, and it's so true because no matter where you are, no matter what, we're all people. We all put our pants on the same way.
Well, I don't know about that. I can't.
Well, your pants are just shorter, Jack.
Right, mine are shorter. I have a shorter step.
But I remember working with VT, and one of my kids on the table, and he had just had a bad swim, and so he said to me, he was complaining, and my buddy Brian always says, "You got 5 minutes," and I said, "What do you mean? You got 5 minutes?
Go cry for 5 minutes.
Bitch, cry, whatever you have to do." Use your 5 minutes, get it out of your system, and it's behind you. It's a rearview mirror thing. You know what? You can't focus on that. And so I said that to him on the table. Because he had a bad swim, and I said, "How do you swim?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "How do you swim?" He said, "I've been doing it since I was a little kid." And I said, "So just go do what you know how to do. Don't think about it. Get out of your head. Just go ahead and do what you're doing." So, I have always offered. I had a good relationship with. I started with Tech in 2010, doing, massage therapy. And so it was all their big events, their ACCs, NCAA, Olympic trials, things like that. And so I have come through with them and watch these kids coming in as freshmen, graduating as seniors. It's been a phenomenal experience. And so he goes and swims his next meet, and he does phenomenal. So anyway, go back to, they win an ACC championship. I'm with them 3 years. They win an ACC championship. I got the ring on right here, actually. There we go. Who's asking? So somebody's asking. Heck for fun. That's funny. Anyway, Tony's putting up quotes on the board so I can see, and I'm reading that as I'm talking to you. So anyway, they win the championship. I think it might have been, if I'm not mistaken, the first time Tech Swim had won. And so I get a call from the coach. He said, your ring size. And I said, yeah. I said, why? He said, we're going to get you a ring. I said, you got me a ring for what? I said, you were part of this. I said, Coach, it was the swimmers. He said, no. He said, you have a really good relationship with the kids. You take the time. I used to send them little things like I'm talking about the things I write. I used to send quotes and text messages to the guys or the girls and say, hey, pass this on if you think it's something that you, and anyway, when we got the rings, we were invited, my wife and I, to go out to Tech and to Virginia Tech. And they made the presentation of the rings at the pool. And then we got to go to the field right before halftime. They brought us out on the field to announce, Virginia Tech men's swim team, had won the ACC championship, and we all had the rings. And one of the kid who was on my table came to me and said, thank you. Now I'm gonna get choked up. But I said, what do you mean? He said, you had a lot to do with that. I said, what are you talking about? He said, remember on the table? And I started laughing because I remember the conversation. And I was like, yeah. He said, you helped me to get past that. And this is going back to what you were saying. You mentor. It's not about, you're working. It's a job. But for me, it's more than that. People were, how much money do you make? It doesn't really matter. As long as I'm doing something that I love, and I've been doing this for so long, I'm good at it. I enjoy what I do. I don't think I'll ever retire, like you and I were talking about before. Don't think that I would walk away from it, even if I don't do it officially. I'm always going to help. I mean, you remember here, you'll appreciate this. Zach, you and Zach were at the Devils game, and Dorothy and I were already in North Carolina, and we came up. And during the intermission, we came up to see you guys, and here he was on the side of the wall, couldn't move. Do you remember that? And I said, he's like, what are you doing here? I thought you. So we came up to see you. I said, what happened to you? He goes, I can't move.
My back went out.
My back went out. So here I am on my knee, leaning down.
People are looking at you like,
I remember those two guys. Remember those two guys came up?
Yeah.
And I look up and I said, yeah. He said, no, nothing. You look like you know what you're doing. I said, I do know what I'm doing. Now be quiet. I'm working. You got a kick out of it. And Zach was able to stand up and walk. And I mean, it's always about giving giving back of yourself. Tony and I were in Wilmington. Tony, you'll remember this. And we were going into a Odd Lot store or one of those stores. I can't remember. Office Max or one of those. And there was
Yankee
an older
Candle.
couple. Yeah, it could have been. Thanks, Jack. That's for another time. But there was an older couple, and they were pushing a huge TV in a shopping cart. Tony and I were walking past them. I said, "Hey, Tone, 1 second. I'll be right back." He goes, where are you going? And I went over. I said to the guy, "Excuse me, sir. Can I help you put that in the car?" He's like, "Oh, I appreciate that." So I said, "Yeah, no problem." So Tony comes walking over, starts talking to his wife. And she's like, "Oh, that was so nice of him." Tony goes, "Oh, you don't know." He does this kind of stuff all the time. Like I'm talking to him and I turn around, he's gone. But I helped the guy get the TV in the car, and we started talking. And he said, "Yeah, I would have been able to do it, but I had a little issue with my shoulder." So I said, "Oh, what happened to your shoulder?" So he said, "I'm a massage
can imagine
therapist."
what happened.
I said, "I'm a massage therapist by trade." And he said, "Oh, I said, "You mind if I take a look?" And the guy was like, sure. So that's when Tony and the wife were like, are you kidding me? And here I am in the parking lot. Let me see, sir. Okay. And I gave the guy my card. I said, hey, look, if I could ever help you, I said, give me a call. Well, that's so nice of you, son. I appreciate that. Yeah, but I can't not be me. You know, I always say that to people.
That's who you are, James.
Yeah, exactly.
That's who you are. And, one of the things I learned from you is that when we used to go into restaurants together, you always introduced yourself to the waitress, got her name or his name, and it builds a connection. There's a saying that it's about following dreams or anything, but there's a connection that's made when there's politeness and niceness. It's so much easier to be nice than it is to be mean and to be not a good person. And listen, I'm an outgoing person. I'm a very open person, and you know that. I mean, when my wife and I would go up to Maine or go to Vermont, we'd walk through the towns. And I remember a town one time we were in Woodstock, Vermont, one of the most unbelievable, most beautiful New England towns you ever want to see. You were probably even there. You were there with us one time.
Right.
Okay. But she'd go into a store. I'm not going in. I'd sit down on the bench. If somebody sat down on the bench, within 3 seconds, I was talking to them. Okay. And you'd always find something in common or something,
All right, Jack, I got to interrupt you for a second. I just got a comment on the board that said, so Jack, I take it you're a cat person. I see all the portraits of the felines in the background, and I'm laughing because you have dogs. You've had dogs all your life.
Well, wait, there's a story that goes with that. That
all
was
right, let's have it
for Alex and Angela.
Okay.
You remember Angela?
Sure, of course.
Okay. And that was a picture of their cat.
Oh, well, no way.
Yes. And we were going to give it to them, but Alex and Ange separated, and we kept it. Now Sue's a cat person, but if you notice, I'm upstairs in the attic type of place in our room up in the attic. It's in the attic. All the pictures of the dogs are downstairs. Thousands and thousands of them. But you're right. I mean,
that's
it's
awesome.
For sale if whoever was on it. No, but
that's
yeah,
awesome.
we're not.
Awesome.
But listen, I mean, I think personally, we could probably talk for hours and hours.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt, Jack.
And I really think we could. And I learned a lot of things, growing up. And I'm going to tell people this, and it might sound kind of weird, but we learn lessons in our life. Okay. I have a goal in my life to learn something new every day and to make somebody laugh every day. Okay. Right. And I live by that. And I try to learn something new every day, and I try to make somebody laugh every day. And the laughing part's not really hard because sometimes people just look at me and start laughing. But the point is that we're here, and it's important that we make the best of what we do, who we are, and how we act. And
100%, Jack.
Like I said, normally after I started reading your stuff and listening to some of your podcasts and stuff like that, it taught me that what people see in their faith and their God or whatever is very similar to what other people see in their life in athletics, their life in business, their life, and whatever people or whoever you pray to, okay, understand that there's a need for that. Okay. Now I always say that, I mean, I was born an Irish Catholic. I was removed from Catholic school in first grade. I was not the greatest, I was not the most religious person in my whole life. But the point is this: whoever you might be, whatever you might think, whatever you might do, do it the right way. Make the right choices. And by reading some of these things, and me just reading a book that has God on every single page and not putting that book down means something to me. It really does.
I appreciate it.
You know what? And the words of wisdom are words of wisdom. They are wisdom. And by learning that and by understanding that and understanding to be a good person is so much easier. I've lived through athletics my whole life. and I've seen some really nasty things happen. I've seen, I mean, you can read about them. I mean, even every once in a while, Rick Wolf on the Sports Edge, he talks about his police blog about this coach beating up this coach or that coach shooting another coach. Why? 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 Because somebody made a bad call against your son, or somebody made a terrible call that made you lose the game. Big deal. That's life, and I tell my kids every day, for every winner there's a loser.
Right.
So learn to lose, learn to deal with failure. Failure is one of the most important tools in success. Like I said before, sometimes we win and sometimes we learn, and the more learning you do. And what I was going to say before is learning some of these lessons the hard way is sometimes the better way. It sinks
I
in.
agree. I
It
agree.
sinks in. And I've
Well,
learned
see,
a
I think
lot of lessons in my life the hard way. I
you
really
and I
have.
have shared that a number of times, Jack.
Yep.
And I think that I wrote a piece in one of the seasons. Sorry, I can't recall exactly which one, that spoke about okay, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And God said, hey, okay, I'm going to sit over here and come see me in a couple decades when you get your head on straight. You know what I'm saying? I just always tried to do everything on my own. Sometimes you just have to give it up. You just have to say, okay, I can't handle this. There's more to this than I know how to, that I can handle, that I'm capable of being able to figure out. Sometimes you just give it away. Like even when I write, sometimes I'll get up middle of the night and Dorothy will say, like, where are you? I'm over here. I'm writing. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I'm over here. I wrote a piece last night for the fifth season. And it was just that. I had all the stuff on my head. I just couldn't close my eyes. And I was like, okay, let me jump up. Let me write down what I have. And then I did. And I've done that, like, again, since I was 12, right? And I go back and read something sometime. I'd find a piece of paper that I wrote and stuck it somewhere. And then I would go through a box and I'd say, what's this? Wow, that's pretty good. Then I get to the bottom of it and I signed it. And I'm like, no, I didn't write that. There's no way. I mean, I'm thinking, like, where did I get this from? And most of them are dated, so then I can say, wow, this is, and we go back to what you were saying before, your experiences as you grow help you grow. I look back and say, I wrote this 5 years ago. Look where I am now. I never gave up. I just kept on trying. I just kept on applying myself. People would say, well, he can't do that. Okay. I'm not going to let somebody, I used to say this, Tony and I shared this a couple times, and Dorothy and I as well. Number one, don't let anybody take away my joy. And it happens. Sometimes we all get to the point where you have a tendency to, like I said, you lose your mind, but more quickly than ever before, come back to, okay, let it go, release it, move on. And I would then be able to look at a piece that I wrote and say, that's where my head was at that time. That's what I was doing. That's what I was thinking. And then look a year later and say, oh, wow, I see a difference, or I see the same theme. So either it's good or bad, and maybe I need to change that. I mean, you said something earlier about, failure. There's no such thing. People say, oh, well, he made a mistake. Excuse me. He made a mistake. And I would say, okay, well, interesting. But to me, there are no mistakes. You have a tendency to, at any time in your life, base choices, and you said it before, Jack, choices based on the circumstance or what's going on at that particular time in your life. And so instead of, either you didn't have all the information because you didn't take the time. I've done that a lot of times. Dorothy says, you didn't even think about that. And I was like, well, no, I didn't have to. And sometimes I react. So to not react to, what's the old thing I learned in college one time about the old George Washington? He wrote a letter to one of the generals. I can't remember exactly who or what, and he was going to send it. And I don't know if it was Martha that said, put it in the drawer, or he just put it in the drawer and went to it the next day or 2 days later and said, yeah, probably shouldn't send that. And it was whoever he was sending it to, whatever general. And I know whoever out there who is a Civil War historian will say, this is the situation. I don't quite know what it is, but they would say he would not have taken that hill had he gotten that letter from Washington saying, you're a fool. You don't know what you're doing. And yet sometimes we speak, we don't think, but no matter what we do, we make it on the choices based on the information we have at the time. So it's not so much a mistake to me. It's just that maybe I wasn't fully informed. Maybe I didn't do the research. So I have to start looking inward. You and I have shared this many times, Jack. Instead of reaching out and saying, oh, he, she, it didn't work out because of, look inside.
Look inside, exactly.
Exactly.
You know, I had a kid in school. His disability was impulsivity. Okay.
Okay.
And impulsivity to the highest level is worse than Tourette's. Okay. They have no control, but impulsive is an emotion. All right. And me being a science person or a health person, I realized that emotions are controllable. So this kid, very smart kid, genius IQ. I'm going to tell you a quick story. Genius IQ was from September to December, before we went home for Christmas and holiday break. He was sent to timeout 121 times. Okay.
Wow. Serious.
He'd come into the class, say something, and get sent out.
Wow.
So the principal came to me and she says, Jack, can you do me a favor? Can you mentor Alex for me? I said, what's going on with Alex? And I never sent the kid out of his class because he loved my class. But I said, what's going on? So she told me. I said, yes. So I started reading about impulsivity, understanding, once again, that it's an emotion. Emotions are controllable. But sometimes we need cue cards to say to us, and you just said it before, and I said it before also in the show, that you got to think, okay? And a lot of times we don't. Why? Because we're impulsive. But here's the situation. This kid and I sat down, and I started mentoring this kid. I started guiding this kid. And I said, what do you want to do in your life, really, when you get out of here? He was in 8th grade. I said, what do you want to do in your life? He said, well, I'd like to go to Columbia University, and I'd like to be a lawyer someday. I said, okay. Well, I told him a quick joke about a lawyer, and he laughed a little bit. So now I had him. We connected. All right. And I said to him, listen, your biggest problem is that you don't think. He said, well, that's what impulsive is, Mr. Smithlin. I said, okay, I understand that.
That's awesome.
But you can control that. How? I said, you need a cue card. So what I did is I made up 6 cards and had them laminated, front and back. Okay. On the front, it said, think before you speak and think before you act. And on the reverse side, it said, what should I think about? And it said, think about the consequences to what you're going to say or do. Okay. And I said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to put one on your binder. You're going to put one on your homeroom desk. You're going to put one in your locker. You're going to put one home on the desk that you do your homework at. And you're going to put one in your pocket. And if ever you're walking down the hall and I ask you for that card and you can't produce it, you owe me a McDonald's frappe. How's that?
Ooh.
Yeah. I love them.
That's awesome. That's but I like that, Jack. And the thing is,
I'm going to tell you something. Never did he have to pay me a frappe.
I bet not.
Okay, now
because you gave him a task.
I gave him a task,
and you were going to hold him to it.
Something to work for.
Exactly.
Now, this kid, we mentored all the way through the second half of the year. In the second half of the year, he's sitting at the desk. He goes to respond. He looks down at this thing and says, "Boom! Think, don't speak. Think before I speak." Okay. And he did. His second half of the school year. Okay. I think he went maybe 20 times into timeout. Okay. The following year, September to not once did he go. To make a long story short, he graduated from Harvard. He is now a lawyer, and he calls me at least once every 2 or 3 months. His mom writes me letters, and he still has that laminated card in his pocket.
That's awesome.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Now you're thinking about a kid who probably would have never succeeded in life because nobody wanted to deal with this kid. And all I did was give him a task, and he did it. Okay. He was capable, but he would always respond. And the kid was a genius. I mean, he questioned the teacher. He was probably right, probably 90% of the time.
You know
But
what's
the
funny,
point was,
Jack? Go
it's
ahead. No,
just, it's what life's all about, James. You know what? And if we're not there to help, if we're not there
right,
to do these
right.
things for these
Exactly.
kids,
Exactly.
ugh,
But here's another thing, Jack. It's funny is that um, you said it before about uh, parenting. We said it about teachers. We said it about it's not a knock on anybody. There's no rule book that comes with kids. When they're born, okay, here, read this, and you'll be able to do everything you need to do, and the kid will be fine. And teachers, they are overwhelmed. I mean, in class when I was growing up, I mean, and you too, Jack. There might have been 35 kids in a class sometimes, and I remember they used to tell my parents, "He's a nice boy if he would just pay attention."
yeah,
And
nice
I'm out there looking out the window. Hey, that's a pretty cool car. Oh, and look at that bird over there. And next thing you know, it's a Mr. Cole. And I'd be like, hello?
yeah.
Yep. It was like, but here's another thing. It's funny. We all learn differently. You said it before. And I remember playing the radio when I was trying to do my homework. And my father would say, shut that off. How are you going to, of course I did. And my dad in a nice way. I don't mean it in a bad way. But I would shut it off. And then later on in life, especially when I was doing massage in the school, they did a test. Wish I could remember the name of it. You might remember. It has something to do with showing how you learn.
Uh-huh.
And so we took this test, and it said, "Hey, you're an auditory, tactile, and visual learner." Yeah, no kidding. Thanks. I said, "Yeah, no, I already knew that."
Mm-hmm.
But that's what in class I would get. Charlie Brown, wah 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 wah. Teachers would talk at me. I couldn't follow that. I was lost. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And so when I finally, called me into a conversation, everybody in the class would laugh because I wasn't paying any attention. I had no idea what they were talking about because I was off watching, daydreaming, doing whatever. And right away I shut down because now everybody was laughing at me. So I don't want to be involved in that. So I would just stop totally doing. And it wasn't that I couldn't remember or I didn't understand. I just didn't take the time. So back
you
to
didn't
that.
want to. You didn't want to.
I didn't want to. Exactly.
Right.
Listen,
I'm gonna.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was saying I wanted to say we've had a number of people listening, commenting. Michael, Tony, was there something about Michael? Was he? Did he want to make a comment? Did he have a question? I'm trying to read that as Jack and I were talking, but yeah. So Michael says Jack is a treasure trove of wisdom. I love him and haven't even met him yet. That's my buddy Michael in California.
Very nice.
The wisdom they are
I'd
putting
love to
down.
meet you too, Mike.
No,
if you're a friend, if you're a friend of James, you're a friend of mine.
Awesome.
I was in Catholic school and I was removed in Catholic school. All right. Removed from Catholic school. Wasn't invited back. But there's a story that goes with this. And my father told me this one day when I was a little bit older. He said that he used to pay a kid to keep me on the bus because I hated it. I didn't want to go to school. I'd run in the bus. I'd take the girls' beanies. So if we were a Catholic school, St. Catherine's in Glen Rock, and I would get on the bus. I'd run down the aisle, taking kids' beanies off, hitting them, and trying to climb out the back door. So my dad paid a kid 25 cents a week to keep me on the bus, an older kid. And about 3 weeks later, he came and handed my father all the money back and said, I'm not doing that job. So my father got called into the principal's office. Father John O'Malley. I know it as if it was yesterday. St. Catherine's. And he said, Mr. Smithlin, let me speak first, and then you can have your words. He said, okay. And the bus, and he started talking. He says, John gets on the bus. He runs down. He slaps the kids. He hits the boys. He pulls the beanies off, and he starts rattling all this stuff. And my father says, Father O'Malley, hold on for 1 second, please. I understand my son is a rebel rouser or whatever words they used back then. Who the heck knows? But he said, I think this a little bit exaggerated. Can you please do me a favor and maybe call the bus driver in? And Father O'Malley says, I am the bus driver. So I was in a lot of trouble that day. Okay. I learned
That's
a
funny,
lesson
Jack.
that day. All
That's
right.
funny. Jack, I'm going to
But
read some of these questions to you because or these comments because there are a lot about you. It says, well, Dorothy, Michael Hunt in California, my buddy Michael, who wrote the piece, says, Dorothy, James would make a good talk show host. I would tune in. He's for real. Michael, James, and Jack always had some great conversations. Definitely motivators. Tony, let's see. Talk show after the reading. These guys are amazing. Love the real talk. Let's see if we
good show.
that's yeah. There's a lot of comments like that we're getting from different people. I think we might be onto something here. So I guess they want to have you back, Jack, and I definitely do. I started to say before. All right, one more thing here is the wisdom they are putting down is priceless. This could really help people. So that being said, we have actually, Jack, I'm looking here. We've probably been talking for about an hour and a half. It seems like a minute. I
Seems
would
like
ask
5
you.
minutes. This is great.
I appreciate it, brother. I'm going to ask you now, and I don't think I really have to. You said it yesterday. If I need to have you back, or I'd like to have you back, or you'll be available to come back and let's do this again sometime
I would love
soon.
to.
We'll talk again. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. The fact that I shared some of my stuff with you, the writings before I put them out, and your comments and Sue's comments were as well as Dorothy and Tony and everybody, all the people that are in my life that mean the most to me, have always supported me, have always given me that ability to keep on pushing forward, and a lot of myself not having other people believe in me growing up. I let them stop me. There's no more stopping me. So I'm looking to do what I need to do, and what you and I just talked about. Teachers need a scaffold on this type of learning. The teachers need to do the work. Michael's saying,
You know what? I'm
Michael,
gonna leave you.
teaching.
I'm gonna leave you with something, and this is something that all parents, all teachers, all mentors, all coaches should try to understand. I was given a book years ago. That was the name of the book was "You Haven't Taught Until They Have Learned." Okay, I believe the book was written. The book was written about John Wooden, the head coach at UCLA.
Okay.
And one of the things that I learned from that book years and years ago is that most teachers, most coaches have a method of teaching, and they do.
Right.
And a teacher that has a method that does not stray from that method, move off of that method when it's not working, do not become good teachers, coaches, or mentors. And here's the reason why. Because every kid is different. Every kid has different personalities, different beliefs, different feelings, different likes and dislikes. Okay. One of the things that I've learned, and I think it's made me a good teacher and a good coach and even a good mentor, is that I don't teach with the attitude that it's my way or the highway. And in my lifetime of learning and going to school, I've had more teachers that had that belief that if you weren't learning it, then you were not smart. You were stupid. And it's not the case. We all act in different ways. We all learn in different methods. So my theory from reading that, my philosophy from reading that book changed my way of teaching. If my kids and students were not learning, I had to change my method. They didn't have to change theirs. So I had to adjust to them. And that makes a good teacher. That makes a good coach. And I'm going to tell you something, parents, that makes great parents. When you can adjust to your child's learning ability or style, then you become a good teacher. And John Wooden said, you have not taught until they have learned. So don't think that title of being a teacher means anything until your students are learning from it. So that's if I had any words of wisdom, that would be my words of wisdom.
I'm going to say it. You know what? I love you, brother. Tony has been putting up all the quotes that you have been sharing with us. So he has it on the screen for anybody who wants to follow.
That book, that was a book.
He has it on Amazon.
Sven Nader.
Okay. Sven Nader. He has it on. He has the title up and the Amazon link. You can click on it and go right to the book.
Great book, written by one of John Wooden's players. And
Okay.
that's for another day someday, because that story is phenomenal.
Well, you and I will definitely be. I'll definitely have you on the show again, Jack. And
I love it.
I love your brother, like from another mother. You know that.
Yep,
It's always
I
been that
agree.
way. I appreciate you taking the time. Again, everybody who's listened, we are hosting this to kind of remind everybody about season 4, episode 1, which is dropping on Christmas Day. I appreciate everybody who was listening, who on this to the stream, who made the comments. Michael, thank you for checking in. Dorothy, thank you for checking in. There's a number of others that I can't even see from the board. There's too many there. But Jack, appreciate it. Tell Sue we were asking for. I sent your boys both a message today and said, hey, here's the link. I don't know if I have Alex's right phone number, but I sent it to Zach as well and said, hey, if you got a chance, listen in. Whether they did or not, I don't know. I didn't see them, but you'll be on again, Jack. Have a wonderful holiday. Happy Hanukkah.
Too, James. Thank
you and
you
Sue.
for having me.
Love your brother. Thank you for being here. We'll talk again. Everybody, season 4, episode 1, airing on YouTube and on my podcast platform through Facebook on Christmas Day. Thank you again. God bless and stay safe, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks again, Jack.
You're more than welcome.
Love you, brother.